meeting to order. First order of business, pledge allegiance. Charlie, do you mind leading?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item 2 is public hearing to consider an ordinance amendment to extend the temporary moratorium on cannabis establishments in the town of Guilford. With your indulgence, I'll act as the moderator. If anyone has any? No? Wonderful. All right. For those who are not familiar, we held a public forum on cannabis. I think it was what week and a half ago. No, 2 weeks ago. I guess it was. Yeah.
April 2nd.
Yeah, where we received some input, and I think it was because we had already scheduled this, we had determined we're going to move the moratorium out another 4 months. And I think that's hopefully going to be enough time for us to make a decision one way or the other on what we're going to do with them. So, is there anyone from the public who wishes to talk about the potential of extending the moratorium? Nope, hearing none. Okay, I will close the public hearing.
What was the official date?
August 31st. And again, just the importance is if we do not extend the moratorium and someone were to apply for a license, we would not be able, they would be able to go through the process of getting potentially permitted with the planning and zoning. So
Hopefully that'll give us some time to square it away.
so we will address that a little later in here and actually move the ordinance, right? All right, item 3, public forum. Anyone wishing to address the board in public forum? Come on up to the table, name and address for the record and share your thoughts on this, please.
I'm Cynthia Damer, and I live at 440 Great Hill Road in North Guilford. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today to address my concerns regarding Eversource's capital project on Long Hill Road and Great Hill Road in North Guilford. I have lived with my family at 440 Great Hill Road for 46 years. First, I would like answers from Eversource as to why Great Hill Long Hill Road was selected for an installation of higher voltage lines, which will necessitate installing 40 to 50 foot poles, replacing the 30 to 35 poles currently in place. This voltage apparently selected is only a step below the voltage threshold that would necessitate approval from the Connecticut Siting Council. This will result in the removal of many large mature trees lining the roadway on both sides of this historic, rural, narrow, lovely road, and will alter the neighborhood permanently. I might just interject here that Great Hill Road is a scenic road designated by the town of Guilford, as is West Street too. West Street is scenic too. I have pictures of what they did over there. One has only to drive the 2.2 miles of Eversource's quote unquote tree cutting project on West Street, Beaverhead Road, to understand what taller poles and greater cutting requirements would do. That project was separate and distinct from the capital project now planned and went under the radar for most everyone in Guilford, and it did not even include the taller poles. My understanding from Eversource representative is that this is just the first phase of a plan that would bring this higher voltage and taller poles all the way north on Great Hill Road to the intersection of Route 77 and then north into Durham. The residents north of number 700 Great Hill Road, which is Annis and Donnie Homer's house, will have not been informed of the extent of this project and how it will affect them, because our project was just phase 1 of more. A vital question that Eversource needs to answer is, why is this not planned for Route 77? It is a state road and double the pavement width of Great Hill Road, which I measured yesterday and took photos of the locations and the mature trees that line the road. So I have exactly places on Great Hill Road, how wide the road is, and pictures of the trees that would be affected. Route 77 north from Route 80 would make much more sense to me. So start at Route 80, where they have the transmission lines, and go all the way up 77. And we'll save many more trees, especially on the opposite side of the road from the power lines. I have included a document titled Roadside Trees, which Matt made copies for me, Ecological Value and Impact on Atmospheric Carbon, to strengthen my position of advocating for the mature, healthy trees that we are blessed with and thankful to have. I believe the best way to get answers to these questions is to have a public hearing, at which time Eversource would present their justification for this project, the overall plan for the area, along with alternatives considered, and the resulting environmental impacts. I recognize the need to provide reliable electricity, but it needs to be done while balancing the historic and scenic value of our road. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Okay. And my husband might have a
That's
few
right.
things. Oh, Aaron, there's Aaron.
Aaron's got prepared remarks.
Yes.
Good morning.
You can sit if it's more comfortable. You don't have to stand. I should have said that for Cynthia.
Oh,
So-
Okay.
Oh.
Good morning. Before I start with my statement, I did email in,
Name and address for the record.
oh, I'm sorry, Aaron O'Hare, 510 Great Hill Road. Before I start, I did send in an email about, there's 2 corrections to your minutes I noticed. So I hope that you got a chance to look at that before you approve them, because there's so much confusion about this project. We don't want to add some certain misstatements to that. Okay. I want to thank you for bringing this matter to your agenda for discussion. I have lived in Guilford on Great Hill Road for over 33 years now. I work as an environmental planner, excuse me, for the town of Wallingford. Yes, a public hearing must be set due to the demonstrated public interest, due to the effect on property values, and due to the historic scenic roadsides proposed to be permanently altered by the project. The board must hold a public hearing because the residents of North Guilford need answers and look to the board for answers. But the board does not have any answers yet. There are too many unanswered questions and there is too much at stake. I want to state at the outset that we all want and need reliable power. And I believe it is possible to obtain the goal of reliable power on existing poles with scenic resources preserved, a win-win. The familiar 30 to 35 foot high poles are serving power reliably to all neighborhoods around Guilford, most of which enjoy tall trees. So the actual height of the poles does not appear to be a limiting factor. We would like the decades-old unreliable wires on our road simply replaced with a more reliable type of wires that are powering the rest of Guilford today. The proposed removal of what may be a total of 300 to 400 mature trees is solely to accommodate the new high poles, which are 15 to 20 feet higher than existing poles. Removal of these magnificent trees lining our country roads would permanently set the visual tree line back from 20 feet up to as much as 40 feet, because some of these giants have a total tree canopy width of 40 feet at the top. The ultimate visual effect created would be a line of 45 to 50 foot high poles standing in a wide open corridor by the road, suitable for a busy thoroughfare or an industrial district, but not for the designated scenic roads in rural North Guilford. Property values would suffer. The engineers who designed this project had no clue that Great Hill Road was a designated scenic road, and that where Great Hill Road and Long Hill Road meet is Meeting House Hill on the National Register of Historic Places. Sensitive design accommodations are mandatory. And I'll when I hand you the letter in the back, there is drawing of the historic district, which goes from above the churches all the way down to the pond, that big pond down below off Ledge Hill Road, off Long Hill Road. I would like for you to take the time to drive up north to see the 180 or so white placarded trees. These are the white hearing notice that Kevin McGee puts on the trees on Long Hill Road. I want you to see the scenery along Great Hill Road and the heartbreaking casualties of the 100 or so stumps and logs that now line Rustic, West Street, and Beaverhead Road, and the open corridors left there behind. The magnitude of this proposed alteration within the town's right-of-way property is evidenced by its name, the Capital Project. The name alone would seem to warrant submission of plans for the review by the town engineer and an agreement, allergies, and an agreement with the town prior to the commencement of such a project. But somehow that did not occur and has yet to occur. The Capital Project was already underway in January with no plans given to the town, not even a definitive terminus for the actual road work. It was early in January when Kevin McGee, the environmental planner and town tree warden, assured me that the massive tree cutting that occurred in December on West Street and Beaverhead Road was not proposed for my road. And that, in his words, Great Hill Road was safe. That's a quote. In early February, I was told he just learned of the Capital Project plan, and he commenced reviewing on a case-by-case basis tree removal of the tall trees tagged by Eversource. Kevin approved the planned removal of approximately 184 trees on Long Hill Road in February. Now it's April, and Eversource is on your agenda to discuss whether or not a public hearing should be set. The hearing will shed daylight on this significant construction project that I was told would necessitate traffic control on Great Hill Road over a 4-month period for the proposed tall pole installation and rewiring. And that 4 months does not include the initial tree removal phase. Everyday life would be disrupted with noise and activity for quite a while. At this moment, we do not even know how far up Great Hill Road the work is proposed to go. Some say to 700 Great Hill Road. That's the Homer's property. Some say to Branch Brook. And an Eversource representative told me it's all the way up the road to Route 77. I suggest that the board advise residents to submit their questions and concerns in ample time prior to the hearing so that Eversource would have sufficient time to prepare answers for the hearing. This would mean that the Eversource documents would need to be submitted for public viewing as soon as possible. The unprecedented nature of this significant construction project calls for transparency. I thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
I have copies, I have 5 copies.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. You referred to public hearing a couple of times. Has Eversource scheduled a public hearing?
No, it's on the agenda today.
So Eversource is not required to have one?
I don't know. That's another question. That's a very good question.
Sure.
State your
David?
name and address.
My name is David Damer. I also live at 440 Great Hill Road with my wife Cynthia. And I will first just say that I, in almost all aspects, agree with both of the sets of comments that you've heard from Aaron and Cynthia. A little background, I graduated with an engineering degree, mechanical engineering degree in 1970, and immediately went to work for United Illuminating in the environmental department. And I spent almost 34 years heading up the environmental efforts at UI, both the regulatory, the legislative, the operational, the testing, all that, including many times in front of the Connecticut Siting Council for the siting of transmission lines, power facilities, that sort of thing. So I'm quite aware of the kinds of analyses that do, or at least should go into projects like this. Now, this seems to be a step below what would trigger a full Connecticut Siting Council review, which usually takes a year or two. But in fact, it's a big enough project that it should still contain those sort of analyses and public input that go along with that kind of a review. It needs to have the need established, the alternatives considered, the effects of those various alternatives. Those are the sort of things that would typically happen in this. Now, they may have happened internally with Eversource. We have very little information. That's one of the problems. We have so little information about this project, and that there were overlapping projects. Only a month or two before Eversource came up to us and said that they were going to, in fact, do this capital project, which was going to necessitate tremendous tree removal. I mean, we're talking close to a couple of hundred trees. Many, and I will admit, many of which are probably small, diseased. Some of those are even dead. There's a lot of stuff that can be removed. The focus is mostly on the mature trees, especially in people's front yards. As my wife did, I encourage you to go up and look at West Street and what has happened there with their tree removal project.
I have
And
pictures
think of
of
the-
West Street on my iPad.
Yes, and also then take a look at Great Hill Road and Long Hill Road and think about that. As a matter of fact, as you drive around the green, think about what these standards would mean if they did this kind of an upgrade south of Route 1. So I encourage the idea of a public hearing. We really need that. It was, talk about the confusion, only a month or two before Eversource came to us and said, well, we're going to need to take down all these trees. An Eversource representative had come to us, knocked on the door, we went out and we walked our property individually, and she said, well, we'll take that limb there, we'll take this limb here. No, we don't need to remove any trees except for this dead black locust up in the corner of the property in the hayfield. And we said, that's all fine, we signed off on it, go ahead and do it. And then it was a couple of months later that we got this. So there were all these competing projects, a lot of confusion in the neighborhood, it seemed like there was a lot of confusion actually in Eversource itself. So we just need actual information. I can't get anyone to tell me what the actual voltage is in the lines that are on Great Hill Road right now. I've been told 6400, 13.8, 1,000 volts. The new line is supposed to be 23,000. There's no engineering information. The people that have been sent out by Eversource are arborists that plan to take down the trees. They really are not engineers. They couldn't tell us anything about why the project was happening except for reliability. And we are all for that. I mean, we suffer from very poor reliability up there. There's no doubt about it. And I know the difficulties inherent because of my previous work with United Illuminating and balancing these things. But we have no information about how to balance that. And that I think is what a public hearing could get to. So that's it.
Great. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
All right, this will be, it is, as you both have mentioned, it is an item on the agenda for our discussions. And we'll elaborate, Kevin and I will elaborate on what we have been able to learn.
Would anyone like to see, I know, Matt, you've taken a drive up, but I have some pictures of West Street, what they did. Anyone wants to see?
Is it possible to email those to us?
I'm not good at that. I can't even get.
I'm gonna take it right up, so it's, I'm gonna take it right up.
And then I have, I did take measurements on Great Hill Road and took pictures along the way. The average width of Great Hill Road is about 20 feet. And Route 77 is, I took a picture by Lake Quanapog yesterday. It's 43 feet, the pavement width. So it's double the width of Great Hill Road on Route 77.
And the trees on Great Hill Road that are planned to come down are all marked.
No, not north of, no, ours aren't marked. I forbid them from doing anything. And so did Aaron, and they're not all marked. Some are, but
And Kevin's online, so he'll be able to be part of our discussion at, when we get to that item. Agenda.
thank you.
Thank you for all your comments. Anyone else wishing to address the board to call it for? Hearing none, let's move on to item number 4. That would be approved minutes. 4.1 is the April 3rd, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second. If you wouldn't mind, you mentioned an email talking about mistakes in the minutes. I could not find that email. Or if it was buried in one of the other emails that you and I had gone back and
No,
forth
it
with.
was sent Thursday to Tracy, but she was, I guess, on vacation. So Karen, I dealt with Karen.
Yeah.
We talked on the phone, and then Karen sent me an email Friday saying it was sent around and would be, I could tell you what it was. I don't have a copy of that.
I didn't receive it. I don't know if it was.
There was actually two different emails with the two different errors.
Karen, have those been uploaded here? Karen or Trace?
Did you hear that? She's just
Uh,
checking.
she's
She
muted. I can hear
she
it.
thought she
She's
uploaded
checking.
them.
She thought she put them up, she's checking.
Karen, why don't you tell us what those were?
Okay, so one was a reference to the 184 or so trees that Kevin marked on, and the minutes say Great Hill Road, it wasn't Great, it's Long Hill Road. The project was then put on pause by Matt on February 27th, so it's, Great Hill Road was, there's only 4 or 5 trees marked on Great Hill Road, so that's very important, that's Long Hill Road. And the
Matt,
other one was a change in the polls, quoting me, that I said that the change in the poles was 40 to 50 feet. No, the change in the poles that's proposed is from today's, which nobody knows exactly, but somewhere between 30 and 35 feet to 45 to 50 feet. So it's not, the minutes say 40 to 50. The change would be from 40 to 50, no.
All right, so how about if we amend the minutes to read, she expressed concern over the replacement of poles with 40 to 50-foot poles.
Excuse me, Matt,
Satisfied?
I did put them under correspondence. They should be there.
Okay.
It would be 45,
Pardon me? Are you-
45 to 50, yes.
yeah. Tracy usually takes these minutes and then often goes back and looks at them. So Trey, had you had a chance to do that?
Yep, I've seen the email. I'll make the corrections as she listed it.
Okay.
Yep.
You got it. All right, anything else on the minutes? So is there a motion to adopt as amended?
So moved. Second.
Any further conversations? Try your minds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries, unanimous. April 3rd, 2023, the public forum. This was, as I mentioned, the cannabis forum that we had with about 30 people in attendance. Any comments or questions on the minutes?
The minutes do say that we had voted to extend the moratorium.
We had voted to set up the public hearing to extend the moratorium.
Right, that's not,
So-
so that could be
That
corrected.
can be corrected.
Yeah.
That's fine. And, all right. With that correction, is there a second? Let me try your minds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Unanimous, thank you. Item 5. Standing in the doorway, just waiting. Mary Jane, good morning.
Good morning.
5.1, received the monthly report. And let me guess, you're gonna start with revenues?
So through the end of March, we are 75% through the year already. Flying by. We are already 99.6% collected, exactly where we were this time last year. The only department that is currently showing under received is Park and Rec. I did speak with Rick. We have a couple items that are, going on right now. Beach passes and boat revenue. This is the time of year for that. Boat rec revenue is already has brought in almost 110%. Beach passes is low at this point, but over the next couple of months, this would be the time that we would start selling those. So Rick was I'm pretty certain that we'd be able to meet our revenue projections.
Good, not that this is gonna move the needle, but I did get my senior beach pass.
Well, there you
last
go.
week,
We'll
so
have to-
Maybe some more revenue.
And I'm about to get mine, so
Okay.
we'll go right over the edge.
Take note that
Every $15.
Oh,
By
is
the
it
way,
15 now?
it's 15.
Oh,
yeah,
we're not-
but
oh.
still a steal.
I will take note that the Board of Selectmen are doing their part.
Yes.
You don't have to mention the senior thing.
Yeah, there's some of us who don't, it doesn't apply to.
I don't think so.
Oh, no.
Any specific questions on revenue?
Well, I'm gonna channel Bob Hartman Senior, we should say. Any anticipations on what the fund balance would look like, or what the contribution surplus would look like end of the year?
I haven't done that as of March. I usually do it, yeah.
That's usually it.
Yeah.
That's right. Bob used to start asking the question in like January or February. That's,
The minute I quote something, it'll, you'll remember it.
and again, just the selectmen's, the revenue number is for, just for the record.
Well, so that includes not only some sales from equipment that we have sold, but it's also the opioid refund that we've yet to set up that specific fund with Youth and Family Services yet. I haven't seen their proposal yet on how they're spending it, but that will be moved out at some point for that project.
Thank you. Yeah, because what, 27,472% is a pretty good number, but
Yeah.
I just wonder how much, that kind of a number affects the bottom line, what it would be. It just doesn't matter at this point in time.
well, the opioid money is going to be moved out into a
It'll
special
be moved
fund.
out.
Yeah, I'm just thinking what it does to the calculation that you've done here. What difference does it make?
We're bound to go over 100% by next month, so.
You're willing to make that bet?
I could probably look that up right now.
Okay, revenues are good.
Okay, on the expenditure side, we're 76% spent overall. Most of the departments are right around that number. Some of them that are over, we've discussed due to timing, like IT, insurance, some of those things we pay upfront, so it skews our numbers going forward. A couple of departments that I'm watching, I'm looking to meet with the golf course. They are already 91% spent. They do have a number of encumbrances. Without that, they'd be 84% spent. I want to talk to them about those because those encumbrances do bring their line items over budget. They're okay on the salary side. It's just really tools and equipment, grounds maintenance, that type of thing. But hopefully those items are fully expended in preparation of the season and not ongoing, but I do plan to have a conversation with the superintendent of theirs. So the fire department, continually working with the fire department to watch their budget. Right now, overtime and replacement is over 90% spent. At this time, we've been really watching those numbers and we're doing really well for so long. All of a sudden, we've hit this speed bump. Other than that, building maintenance, operating supplies, and vehicle maintenance are over at this point. I think the deputy chief talked about vehicle maintenance at a recent public hearing for the budget and building maintenance, but operating supplies are well over. There is a large, again, encumbrance that encompasses almost the whole overage for operating supplies, but we have seen our costs spike for the operating supplies, and it's really dependent on how often our ambulance is out and what it's out for. So that operating supplies can go up and down depending on those. But again, as I speak to the fire department every month, we review that. Even Ken Wilson had a conversation with him a couple of weeks ago. We're really watching these numbers, but they are what they are at the moment. So
we've
moving
got
on, oh,
just
sorry.
based on
Good.
fire. We
Yep.
still have, workers' comp cases.
We do, yes, and
And-
as you can see, we do have expenditures in the workers' compensation line.
And also, is there one individual who's deployed in the
He,
military?
has returned.
He has returned?
Yes.
All right, so, okay, good.
The only other one I would mention is the overages in debt, but I do have on the agendas today to make those oh,
Adjustment.
adjustments for that, as I've spoken about the last month.
Any questions on expenses? Medical?
So we had we had a high month. We had a high month. February was low, less days in a month. That does make, it does make a difference. So we did have $1.3 million worth of claims, bringing that number up just slightly. We paid out, you'll see the Slim Nation. We did pay the Slim Nation for the recent, for the one that we have going on now. So that is there. As far as catastrophic claims, we are at 14.6% covered by that. We are up 3 people at this point. We had 17 over the 75 with 4 over the 150 last month, and we're now at 20. So that's coming up. Revenue is always steady. The projection is down a little bit, obviously, because we had a big month in March. So we're at $365,000 with 3 months to go left in the year.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions on them? Just one thing comes to mind, we are still awaiting results of the bid for our insurance services.
We're hoping to get those very soon. Just had an email back and forth with our consultant last week or the week before. So we're, hopefully getting closer to getting those numbers.
Okay. No preliminary indications
We
at
have
this
none,
point.
none, no. Unless you've heard anything since then, no.
Anything else? No? Okay. All right, so let's, item 5.2, discuss and take possible action on a request for the fiscal year 23 debt budget transfer as
Correct.
the aforementioned.
That's right. So as you know, through our budgeting process, we do take a reduction for some of the premium credits that we receive when we go out to bond in August. We use those premiums to mitigate the ups and downs. And so, as Matt would say, my favorite chart shows a more steady decrease instead of ups and downs throughout budget seasons. So this year, we did budget $85,000 through the budgeting process. I am short $85,359. And the difference is because we estimate what that first interest payment is going to be on next. So we've already estimated what our interest is going to be on bonding that we haven't even done yet for the 2024 budget. So we were only off $359. So I would say that wasn't too bad. So I am looking for a transfer from fund balance committed to future debt, which is where those premium credits are kept, in that amount of $85,359, giving $2,097 to the interest budget and $83,282 to the principal budget.
Great, thank you. Comments or questions?
Yeah, can you remind us, please, after the 83 comes out, what do we have left?
Oh, I'm not sure. We have quite a bit.
It's substantial.
Yeah, it's a substantial amount. I would say it's less than 500,000. But it's there. But so that graph that we showed during the budget season does take all of our premiums and have it. So if you were to look at the detail of the graph, of course, I update that every year based on, again, because in August we'll be going out to bond. Even though I put that estimate in there, it adjusts a little bit. But all of those premiums are accounted for in that graph, allowing us to keep that steady down. But I can get that exact number for you, but it's somewhere around $500,000.
And we anticipate going back out to the market in August
In
again.
August,
How big an issue is that going to be?
I've anticipated $5 million. If you look on these capital reports. At the very end, the last column shows the fund balance. You can see on the town side, we're about 770,000, and on the Board of Ed side, we're about 3.3 million. Plus, we will be covering bonding that we did to use up the first bond for open space, and something on the new bond. So I'm anticipating a $5 million bonding in August.
Which ought to generate additional premiums
Which
to
should
continue the cycle.
correct.
Okay.
To continue that cycle, yep.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Is there a motion to make the transfer as described in the memorandum?
Second.
Further comments or questions? Hearing none, we try minds, all in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very
MJ,
much.
thank you very much. Item 6, Economic Development Director Sherry Cody on her monthly report. Good morning, Sherry.
Good morning, everyone. Tracy, can I share my screen? Looks like I can. Give me 1 second. For some reason, my PowerPoint is not popping up. There we go. Too many files open, I guess. Okay. All right. So good morning, everyone. Sorry about the delay. A few things to update you on this morning. The first, we'll start with Guilford businesses that received awards. So the Chamber of Commerce every year holds their annual meeting and an award ceremony. And this year they honored some of our businesses and a community partner as well. So you can see here our Small Business of the Year, Back to Balance Chiropractic. Our Excellence in Innovation Award went to Biomed Devices. Our Nonprofit of the Year, of course, was GCTV. And then our community partner, Hometown Hero, Linda Toscano. So that's a nice little event that the Chamber does. They invited Governor Lamont to be their keynote speaker this year. And of course, Matt was there for the presentation of recognition plaques from the town as well. We also have, in partnership with the EDC, undertaken an initiative this year to update our database, which is significantly large and a little outdated. This is information that's been collected over the years for more than just Guilford businesses. So I've got businesses in there from all over the state. I've got legislators in there and a bunch of information that's not really organized as well as it could be. So we're doing a couple things. The first thing we're doing is doing an analysis of our database to update contact information, addresses, so that I can pull information just for Guilford when I want to email Guilford businesses. The second thing I've done is downloaded all of the business starts for 2022. And this is after a conversation I had with Matt, and he wanted to know what, our business starts in Guilford. So downloading that information from the Secretary of State's office, I came up with 242 entities that registered their name with the state of Connecticut in 2022. This is just a slide that shows you some of the examples of the names that people are registering. We are filtering through the database, this listing, to see how many of these are just real estate holding companies, and then how many of these are actually businesses. And I'm reaching out to some of those to meet with them and learn more about their businesses, which has been very, very interesting for me. Each month for 2022, there were between 15 and 35 new registrations. So it's pretty good. And another thing we're doing is working with a high school student to help look at the information, the database, and update. That will also help us on our tourism website as we start to populate all of the restaurants, all of the lodging, not that we have that much of lodging, but all of our attractions and our retailers in our tourism database as well. And I'm also doing what I call walkabouts, and that is just going and walking, through plazas and little shopping areas to physically drop off information to the businesses, make sure they have my business card, take theirs if I don't already know them so that I can collect their information for our database as well. And we're doing an EDC breakfast. This is something that Brian used to do when he was here, and it stopped during COVID, but we're bringing it back. And this is a little committee of the Economic Development Commission is working on putting together a business breakfast for September. Initially, we thought that we would do some sort of awards or recognition for longevity in the town, but that information has been very hard to come by. So we've sort of pivoted to providing resources to our businesses. And that would be things like the Small Business Administration, inviting them to come and speak on their, I guess, resources. Also the WBDC, the Women's Business Development Center, or the SBDC, or any of the acronyms that you can think of, we're sort of mulling over right now. As I mentioned, our commissioners are putting this together. So it will be held in September, I think, and we're looking at doing that at the community center. So it'll be a good opportunity to bring our businesses together, do a little networking, you know, for them, and introduce them to our EDC members. Transportation, I wanted to share this with you because this is an initiative that Madison and Guilford are both able to participate in. So the 9-Town Transit, which is now called River Valley Transit, they changed their name, and SCROG reached out to me to see if we could meet and talk about a micro transit grant that the Department of Transportation is offering to River Valley Transit. And in Madison, I've been working with this group for a little while now, and been wanting to sort of get Guilford into that. So the meeting took place with folks from both Madison and Guilford to talk about this micro transit grant. And it looks like both towns are going to participate. So we're scheduling another meeting, a follow-up meeting, but essentially River Valley Transit and SCROG are taking the lead on filling out the information or the grant application. And then secondary to that, I had issued a survey in the town of Madison a little while ago. So we're going to duplicate that and do that here in Guilford, changing some of the questions a little bit, just to get a sense of, you know, who uses public transportation, how do they use it, where do they want to go when they do travel on public transit, and then also our businesses, making sure that we get information from our businesses in terms of, you know, getting employees to work. That is something that I've heard anecdotally from our businesses, is that sometimes they have challenges getting employees to come to work on time because of bus routes or bus timing isn't working in their favor. So that's information that we can collect to help us as we move along this path. So our tourism website, we've been working on for a little while. This is a partnership, of course, with the Guilford Preservation Alliance. I am planning to launch this by the end of the month. And I'm very excited because we are sort of on the brink of our tourism season. And as I mentioned, we're also pulling together lists of businesses that we can put on this website. So our committee is meeting later this week to hopefully put the finishing touches on the site and get it launched. I'm also bringing in some of the retailers to look at this because currently the committee has been EDC and GPA members. I'd like to have some feedback from the people who actually will be featured on this website and get a sense of what they think of this. So I'm doing that this week as well. Our signage. So you've seen me talk about this for a while on for our welcome signs, which look fantastic still, and they're all you know, there where they belong. They've all been installed. This is sort of a phase 2. So I've shown you some imagery. This really, you know, Mike Mizell, one of our EDC members, gets all the credit for this because this is an initiative he's been working on for years. But phase 2 is, of course, our 5 wayfinding signs. And I wanted to show you images of the ones that were installed last week and the week before. So right on Route 1 and Church Street on the corner there, you can see the sign, Boston Street and Soundview, and then also Route 1 and Goose Lane. I wanted to show you that the last image there on the right, and I circled it. all of that sort of sign clutter has been removed. And the DOT did that. We did not. So we're not responsible for making anybody mad at us for removing their signs. That's the DOT who did that. But you can see that it just cleans it up, and see the image there, and see is what it looks like now. So quite a difference there. And then there are 2 more coming, and I showed you here on my slide near exit 57 and on at exit 58. So that's a nice little addition to town as well. This slide shows you just some of the businesses that I have worked with that are interested in either expanding in town, moving in town, or coming to town. And I did this for the EDC earlier, I think last month, just to give them a sense of kind of the types of businesses. This is just a sampling. The list that I have is longer than this. But it gives you an idea of some of the businesses that are looking to come to town, or like I said, expand. And then at the bottom, I added that common issues include zoning. Someone may want to move to an area, but their business doesn't fit in that sort of zoning regulation. The biggest issue we have is buildings that go under contract immediately. So, if I see an available property and I tell someone that I know is looking, and then the building is gone. It's just incredible the way that the speed of which people are securing these spots. And then also, of course, septic capacity can be an issue as well. And then just a little update on developments, and I think Jamie's in the room, so she can add anything that I may miss here, but you heard me talk about the Ben Callahan Sports Complex and their fantastic development ideas that they have. They are working through the process currently, going through wetlands, inland wetlands, of course, design review committee. I think that they're still gathering funding for their project. And I did hear last week that they added a concession stand to their current design elements. So that's moving along. Of course, these things do take time. Chase Bank, you heard me talk about that the last time, but that has been approved, a 2,900 square foot standalone building in the parking lot where Walmart used to be, or where the building is there. And then, of course, the veterinary hospital is doubling in size, and that was also approved. So those are ready for shovel, and we will see some activity there soon, I think. The one thing that's not on this slide, but I will mention to you is, of course, is Bed Bath & Beyond. You've probably read about that, heard about that. They will be vacating. I talked with the real estate broker there, and a couple of things. One, they don't know when Bed Bath & Beyond will be leaving. They didn't mention. They still have some time on their lease. But the good news is that the broker is the same broker that represents the Shoreline Plaza and the Walmart space. So there's some synergy there with any retailers who are looking at coming to town, who may have looked at the Walmart space and maybe didn't, found it too big or whatever. It can be looking at the Bed Bath & Beyond space as well. So I thought that was good news. That is a 21,900 square foot space that needs to be filled. I have my wishes of what goes in there, but we'll see what happens, as you know, and as you've seen from the Walmart space. These things take time, a lot of time sometimes. So I'll stop there and see if you have any questions.
That's great, Sherry. Thank you very much for a comprehensive report. Anybody have any questions or comments? No? Great. Thank you, Sherry. All right, item number 7, Police Department, Chief Hyatt, 7.1, discuss and take possible action to waive the bid process for consulting services to conduct promotional processes for the Guilford Police Department. Good morning, Chief.
Good morning, everybody.
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for the time this morning. Very briefly, this proposal, we only kind of do promotional processes when they're needed. And in this case, there are some pending retirements at the different ranks here that are going to need replacement through the promotional process. So in 2020, we used BadgeQuest. They came in, very good group to work with, have a really good reputation both here and in other states. And they actually kept their pricing the same as 2020 for us for this process, with the potential, depending on the number of people who come in, to lower that price should the number of people drop below 5 for the processes. They're also, they customize the testing process, which is a 2-part test, which is they compile a written exam and then also compile an assessment center, which is about a 4-hour process of people going through real time dealing with issues and things that they might bump into in whatever rank it is that they're testing for. The group that they provide the testing, all law enforcement professionals from Connecticut. Many of them are at the chief and deputy chief rank. So people with a lot of experience evaluating the people going through the testing. So because they customize based on our needs, and we've used them in the past, that's the reason why I'm asking to waive a process and also to get approval to move forward. We do have money budgeted for this testing process. And it's also been reviewed and okayed by the Board of Police Commissioners to move forward for your review.
Great, thank you, Butch, for that detailed explanation. Obviously, the results of the last process are evident, but now you've decided to yourself move on and retire. So you're actually proposing to find someone to replace yourself through this organization. So one thing that I found interesting was that if there were less than 5 candidates that they had to interview, that they would actually reduce their fee. I have to admit, that's one of the first times I've ever seen something like that in one of our contracts. So
They actually did that in 2020. We had 3 candidates and they dropped that the number.
Great. All right. So the motion would be to approve the waiving of the bid process for consulting services by BadgeQuest. And you are asking us to move forward with approving the contract as well at this time?
Yes.
And that would be in the amount of $13,400 unless there were less than 5 candidates. It would be a $1,200 reduction.
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments or questions? Let me try your mind. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries.
As always, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Butch.
Appreciate it.
Item 8, Cliff Gurnham. Good morning, Cliff. First item is receive and act on the award of the Cox replacement furniture under state contract to Red Thread.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. This is the last phase of purchasing for furniture and equipment for the Cox Media Center. The purchase of this equipment will also be under the PEPM contract, as we've done with the last 2 phases. The proposal was reviewed and received by the Standing Building Committee, and they have recommended award to Red Thread under the PEPM contract in the amount of $32,053.74.
Thanks, Cliff. Any comments or questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Anything further? Hearing none, we'll call it, try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. 8.2, receive and act on award of Cox carpentry work for the media center renovation under Gordian State bid to BMP Construction. Cliff?
So this is the renovation of the media specialist office / workroom. So we'll be replacing the cabinetry and shelving and sink in that space. So we, as you heard, are looking to do this work under the Gordian bid. And the proposal was looked at and reviewed by the Standing Building Committee, and they recommended moving forward with BMP Construction, the amount of $13,228.82.
Wonderful. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Item 3, discuss and take possible action to decline the Guilford High School tennis court bids. Cliff?
Yep, so we did talk with town council as well as Peter Barrett regarding this bid. Unfortunately, the two bids that came in are both over the present budget. So we are looking to go back out to bid, decline this bid that we received, make some adjustments to the bid package, get some credits for a couple things like the fence and possibly do some milling in place and see if we can get that down back within budget. So we're looking to do that quickly, hopefully get it back out to bid this week and get numbers that are within our budget. So we've talked to the engineer of record and they are on board with doing this and feel that we should be able to get it underneath the $1 million threshold that we have for a budget by rebidding the project.
Thank you. Cliff, how many bidders did we responded?
There was only two bidders. It's kind of common in this area. There's two primary tennis companies that do most of the work in this area. One's Hinding Tennis and the other one's Classic Turf.
Got it. All right, thank you. All right, is there a motion to decline the Guilford High School tennis court bid?
So moved.
Second.
Any other comments or questions for Cliff? Hearing none, let me try your minds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now I can say it's unanimous.
Sorry.
That motion carries unanimously. Item 9, Parks and Recreation, Rick Maynard. Good morning, Rick. Going up.
So I got so many items on the agenda, but you look and see me too much. Once, bring a bunch of things.
All right, so 9.1 is discuss and take possible action on the award of the fireworks for July 8th, 2023.
So we're asking you to waive the necessity for 3 quotes, and every year I ask this, and you put great atlases. We know what they give us. The product is good. Fire marshal's always been very pleased. They always bring exactly what they say they're going to bring. Their safety record is impeccable, and we know it's a great show. And they've held it's the same number of shells as last year, and the same price they've gone up. And so it'd be $18,000 for the same show, and that would come out of our program account, which we normally pay that out of anyway.
Great. Thank you. Is there a motion to waive the 3 quote requirement and award the bid to?
I'll move.
I don't
Interesting that they held the price. I mean, it's not very many.
Yeah. This day, it's
Great.
I'll second it.
All right. Any further comments or questions?
I do think at some point, just I think it's a good practice to go out and get quotes. Doesn't mean that you have to go with somebody if they've been great and we're comfortable with the safety, but at some point, maybe next year.
It was interesting that Mitch is on the board of selectmen in Orange, and their costs are higher than what we have, the quotes we get here. So and he's also trying to get Bryotech. Is that how you say it now?
Yeah.
Bryotech.
We can make the
Have
same
to-
argument
to-
for a lot of purchases.
Purchase, yeah.
So we
Just mentioning the fireworks bid and the challenges you guys are having there, your costs are higher than the ones.
25,000.
Much?
25,000 approved, but it's also for the July 2nd date, which might have a
huge difference.
play into
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Got it. Yes. We'll make an effort next year just to do the exercise, or even, if you find a spare few minutes, Rick, just to satisfy our curiosity, see what the other bid prices might be.
So you have a different company for the 25,000.
We do, and we're gonna be, next year, gonna be going out to bid as well. It's a whole different arrangement in Orange, but we will be going out to bid next year because of the increased costs. It just year after year, it's just, as Rick seen,
Except this year they held it. which is
Oh,
nice.
good.
Yeah.
I think the date probably, I remember the negotiations years and years ago, and I think the date made a big difference.
It does, and it's difficult. I mean, you have to, if you're gonna go to bid, you have to have the exact number of shells, and everybody does a little different, They may not have the 4-inch shells, they got the 3-inch, and the prices are all different. Getting apples and apples is a little bit challenge.
So when we sign a contract with them, do we get the specs on exactly what's going, that becomes, I think, the pro forma
Yeah.
for your other quotes.
Yeah.
right?
And they do a nice job on top of it.
They do. And the fire marshal are impressed with their
Yeah.
professionalism
Yeah.
as well, so good. Okay, let's try, we have a motion, right? Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
9.2, discuss and take possible action on the award of a wall divider replacement at the community center.
We're gonna build a wall and Madison's gonna pay for it.
That's the way to say
How
it.
long?
Boy, that'll be a long week.
Now I forgot I was gonna tell you.
But you guys only get to talk to him once. We got some more cracks at the end.
Well, we only had one bidder, Wilco, which is actually the company that originally put the wall in anyway. They're the only ones that responded to the bid. It was $43,910. We budgeted $50,000, so we're actually under budget. We will probably be using the balance of it though, because there was some work that is not part of wasn't part of the bid. We have to, above the wall is that sheetrock that's got to come down and get replaced afterwards. We may be able to do some of that in-house. We may have to contract some of it out. So we may end up spending the $50,000, but for the bid,
Is
the
it the
wall
same
itself is
type
40.
of mechanism, just not upgraded, but
Well, we're hoping they use the same track. I believe that's where the plan is to use the same track that's up there, but the wall is just, well, it's 1993, it's 30 years old.
yeah, no, I just wondered if engineering wise, because it always seems to me that it's always been not problematic, but it's not, push a button type thing. You gotta work at it a little.
Yeah, it's not real, it's in like 4 sections, so you're only moving 2 sections at a time.
Yeah.
So it's not real heavy, it's not too bad. I mean, yeah, I've done it many times, it's not moving something very, very heavy.
But it's still a manual process, it's not, electrified
No.
or, it's
No,
still
it's
gonna
not.
be a manual process.
It's just replacing worn out pieces at this point then, yeah.
Very much.
They're pretty worn though. I was sitting underneath it the other
Yeah.
day looking at it. And you move it so often,
Right.
you're opening or dividing the room, so,
And it's lasted 30 years, so we certainly got our
yeah.
our value for it.
Okay, is there a motion to award the Wilco? Is it Wilco Sales?
Yeah.
Okay, Wilco Sales, the contract, the amount of $43,910 to replace the wall divider.
So moved.
And a second.
Second,
Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, let me try your minds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. 9.3, discuss and take possible action to award the tennis court reconstruction at Adams Middle School.
So we had the same two, when we went out to bid for the tennis courts, we did the high school and Adams together. But the bid was structured in a way that we could award all one to one company or we could split it. And it turned out splitting it made more sense because it's a better value for the town. And as you heard from Cliff, they're gonna bid the high school one, but the Adams courts, Hinning came in at, we have $180,000 budgeted. And keep in mind, that's like, what, a year and a half ago or something when we did the budget, so the prices go up. So it wasn't really bad. It went up to $199,013. So I expected it to go up 20 to 40,000, so it's just about 20. So we're right about in there. Classic Turf bid $303,100 for the same project. We had an alternate in the specs to expand the parking lot. Right now, there are, I think, 14 parking spaces. If we have pickleball going on, that's 16 people playing, there are 14 spaces. So we talked about, Mike Ott was doing the design work for this, of doubling it up to 28 spaces. It would also benefit the school, when they have big functions going on, they don't have enough parking on the other side, people could park there and walk over. So it has a benefit beyond tennis and pickleball. So we'd like to go with the alternate was, with Hinton was 50,000 to do the parking lot. Classic was 96,400. So the total, if we award to Henning, is $249,013, which includes expanding the parking lot. And when I've talked to the Parks and Recreation Commission, they can take the balance of that out of the program account.
Okay.
No issues with expanding with zoning and neighbors or anything like that?
The whole process was approved by planning and zoning, including expanding the parking lot. That was part of the original plan. The tennis court footprint would move just a little bit, I guess toward the grass a little bit. Not a lot, because the expanded parking is maybe 12, 15 feet, something like that.
It sounded like it was almost doubling, but not quite, I guess.
And we could opt not to do it, but just, if we're gonna do it later, it just makes more sense. They're already there with the pavers and asphalt, I think it makes more, it'd be more cost effective to do it now rather than sometime later, say, oh, we should, let's pave it now, make it bigger.
Hending is a Guilford company, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Guilford.
they've done a lot of projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Including the pickleball courts, right?
Yes.
Because the numbers are interesting. So the more expensive bid, the Adams Court 50% higher, the parking double, but they're 10% lower for the high school courts, which I know we're not taking action on.
I noted the same thing. It's a 60% differential between the two prices, 250 to 400, basically.
Yeah.
But,
The same price.
but not on the biggest component, what they
Component,
bid on. Theirs was 10% less for that.
Are you talking about for the high school or for?
Yeah.
Well, so the high school, the difference is that's post-tension concrete. This is asphalt. So there is a big difference with that. Post-tension concrete is a lot more expensive.
Well, there's also significantly more tennis courts too.
Yeah, 6
But
versus two.
my point was that they were the cheaper bid on it, not what the amounts were, but the fact that their bid was lower on that and so much higher on the other ones. It makes you
Yeah.
wonder apples and apples or whatever, but if you're comfortable with finding, great.
We are, they've done a lot of work with us.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the award of the tennis court, Adams Tennis Court reconstruction to Hindu Tennis with a bid of $199,013 and also the award of the parking lot to Hindu at $50,000. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any further comments or questions?
I'll just comment that I applaud the commission for looking at this with the program account where some study and review with members from the Board of Selectmen and members of the commission and Rick. And it's working towards a positive report on that, but this is a significant amount of money that's coming out of that.
So the people who are paying fees for the other programs
Right.
are funding the tennis courts at the
Right.
school. I mean, that's a separate philosophical discussion, I guess. But
Well, I
take your
I
point.
don't think we're so much worrying about whether you're paying a fee for the beach and using the beach, but if you're paying fees for programs, it's going back into programs and not something else, which is good. I mean, I don't know if we could ever get to make it so perfect that $3,000 would, from beach passes would go back into the beach. I don't know. You know what I mean? Is that what you're saying?
No, the beach passes we keep in general.
Well, that's right. It was the wrong thing. Like yoga fees would go only back into yoga versus just the program account. I don't know. You can,
I think it's a
I
bigger
agree.
conversation
Yeah, I
than
think so.
we're prepared to have now, but.
oh God, I'm going to resign from that committee if we have to do it.
No, we won't take it. This is the philosophical argument. The actual, I think as you may have heard me talk, anecdotally, I understand the reason they did program fees was because there were folks in town that didn't think that their tax dollars should be going towards gymnastics equipment or yoga equipment. And that's why that they were funding those programs independently for a number of years. And I think we've started to peel back the layers on that. We're utilizing program funds for salaries, started to use it for some salaries because there's no doubt that our staff has to do the coordination of these things. So sharing in some of that to offset some of those costs, I think is appropriate. But we'll go further into it. All right. So we have a motion on the table, right? And let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries unanimously. Okay. All right, item 4, discuss and take possible action to approve the repairs to Jacob Beach septic system.
Yeah, this was a late, and thank you for taking this under consideration.
Yeah.
So I think I came a while back when ARPA money came into effect. We talked about improving the septic system.
Yes, we did.
It's been a while, and we had some changes in designs and different conversations about what to do there. So we're finally at a point where like, let's move it, let's do something here. But what happened is, I can't remember last summer or the summer before that, 2 weeks in a row, the system was backing up. It was like on a Saturday evening at 10 of 6. 10 minutes before lifeguards are going home, and I get a call. There's stuff coming out of the drains. And so we got an emergency pump out, and it happened again the following week. And so then I scheduled the pump out the next 2 weeks, so we weren't paying the emergency fee. So 4 weeks in a row, we had to do it. The problem is that the system isn't sized for the amount of use it gets now. There's just, I think it's a 1,000-gallon tank. We're gonna go to a 2,000-gallon tank. And it just can't handle. I mean, I was just doing some rough estimations. It could be 2,000, 3,000 flushes a week, just between camp and picnics and beach users and everything else. And it's just, it's not sized enough for that anymore. So we got 2 quotes, and one was really a no quote on Friday. For now, we're just buying the tanks, the 2,000-gallon pump chamber, 2,000-gallon septic tank, and a utility valve. We're not gonna do the leach field now, because there's just no way it's gonna get done before
For the season starts.
yeah, and I talked with Sonia and Mike out, our engineer, and Shirley on Friday to discuss this, and we think it's reasonable. It'll get us through the summer because it's double capacity, and then in the fall, when things settle down, we do the leach field. There's a special way that Sonia has better explanation how it goes, but it's something to do with putting some mulch in it that helps reduce the number of nitrates, and it reduces the chance of stuff getting at the long onset. And so that's just gonna take a little more time to do that. So in the fall, we'll come back with a contractor for that and everything, and the materials. But so for this request is for purchasing the materials only, because it could take a couple of weeks to get them. I started contacting contractors Friday. We're gonna meet with them this week and get at least 3 or 4 contractors to look at it, then get a price to put it in. I'll come back to you May 1st or whenever the next board select meeting is for the installation, but I want to order this stuff because if we wait, it may be too late. So I want to get the materials, we have them, we'll get them ready to be delivered when the contractor's ready. And then the goal is to have them be prepared to do this somewhere between May 8th and May 22nd, get it done before Memorial Day. If we have days like last week, there's gonna be people down there, you know. But if we have to shut it down for 2 days, I'll get a porta john for a couple of days if we have to. But it's either this or we wait till fall, and I just think we gotta do it. We've been waiting, and I just don't want it backing up again, and
Especially down by the water, you can't.
yeah.
When the next step in looking at the leach fields and the rest of it all, I think we've pretty much already done that bathhouse down there, but has there been any exploration of, low flow, utilities, things like that?
We did last year, we did put low flow toilets in. That helped, I think. Yeah.
And the automated ones rather than having people do it.
Yeah. We don't have that yet, but we will put them in, but we have, they're lower flow toilets, less water going out. So the price that we got from United Concrete for those 3 things, a 2,000-gallon pump chamber, septic tank, and utility valve, $8,290. For Jolly Precast, the total was $11,790. And the third company I called was Atlas Concrete, but their largest tank is 1,500 gallons, and we want to go 2,000. And so the United is Mike, I thought that was a good price. What I request though is that you approve up to 10,000. I don't just fittings or things that we're not thinking about. I want to make sure we're all covered. We can order it and go forward with it. And if I remember correctly, I think that was going to come on our ARPA. I believe that was the original conversation we had. We were first talking about the ARPA money.
That's right.
Yeah.
And this
Mary
is
Jane is on. Do you want to just verify that?
MJ? Multitasking?
I'm sorry, I had a member of my staff in my office. What was the question?
The original appropriation for replacement of the septic system at Jacobs Beach under American Rescue Plan funds.
Give me a second, I'll bring it up.
And Rick, if this is
I have 250,000.
For-
Oh, no, sorry, wrong thing. 15,000. Wrong thing on Jacobs. 15,000 to upgrade septic system at Jacobs Beach, which actual price to be determined is my note.
Yeah, I think it's more like 28 when it's done.
But that's the holding number, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at that point, Sonia still hadn't done the design,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Purchasing the equipment is separate from the contractors don't want to be involved in that, or?
Well, they could, but it may, if you approve it today, I want to get it going because it could take 2 weeks to get them.
No, I understand your logic. I just want to make sure that you said you're going to be interviewing contractors. You know, you're confident that they know the situation.
We will make sure that, yeah, they're gonna be aware, Mike Ott is gonna send them the plans so that, you know, they have that and they know what they're gonna be quoting out for that.
And that the equipment has already been purchased.
It will have been purchased, yeah. Yeah, there will be other like miscellaneous assets,
Sure.
fittings that, you know, I don't know what all that is. And that's, the contractor may have to have some responsibility for piping and whatever, but Mike knows all that. And so he'll make sure that's in the plans. So this is just to buy the.
I was just concerned that we're buying stuff that whatever chosen contractor we choose is comfortable.
Yeah. Well, United Concrete is pretty well established. I think, you know, most companies work with them anyway.
So there's chances are good that local contractors would be able to bid on this, right? On the work piece of
Yeah,
this.
yeah. Well, in fact, we have 4 or 5 that I called that are, I think at least 3 or 4 of them are in Guilford.
Have they given you any indication on timeline, whether they'd be able to complete it within the timeline you're
Well,
looking at? If we have
when we
materials?
talked to them this week, I just put full messages into them on Friday. I haven't talked to any of them yet. We're gonna do that today. Mike's gonna send out the plans to them today. And then we're gonna meet with them on site, I think on Friday.
All right, is there a motion to approve the award of the purchase of the equipment that Rick has described to United Concrete for a price not to exceed $10,000?
So moved. Second.
Anything further? Let me try your minds. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Rick, I'm surprised you didn't have a joke about the materials that you usually would have been on top of, except you don't use swear words. So.
But I have only good for one per meeting. I got one already.
It's great. Thank you, Rick, for
Thanks.
all you're doing.
Thank you.
All right. Next up. Discuss and take possible action on the Demas Homeland Security Grant Resolution and authorize the first selectman to sign. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second? Second. This just allowing us to take Demas funds. So,
Sounds good.
yeah. And Mary Jane will find a place that we can appropriate those to, I'm sure. All right. Anything further? I think we've done this every year for the last few years, right? All right, let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Item 11, discuss and take possible action to set the annual town meeting date for May 8th, 8:30 a.m. at the Guilford Town Hall and via Zoom. This is our traditional meeting that usually Sue and I attend, and Tracy, because Tracy has to take the minutes. It's a pretty perfunctory meeting where we receive reports from various boards and commissions. And sometimes we have questions, sometimes we have people who can answer those questions at the same meeting. So there was a discussion with someone, a resident in town, about on whether this room is going to be sufficient or not. I think that was on the heels of the annual budget meeting from 2 weeks ago tomorrow, where we had to relocate from the community center. At this point, this room, the capacity for this is 34 people. I'm comfortable setting it up here at this point. If for some reason we need to move it, we'll all walk over to the community center.
Well, and it's hybrid.
Drive to the high school.
And it's hybrid. I mean,
Yeah, it is a hybrid meeting, so. It's a hybrid meeting, so. All right, so is there a motion to set the annual town meeting date for May 8th at 8:30 a.m. at Guilford Town Hall and by Zoom?
Second.
Let me try your minds. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Consider and take possible action on an ordinance amendment to extend the temporary moratorium on cannabis establishments in the town of Guilford as a result of the earlier public hearing. Is there a motion to extend the moratorium until August 31st? At which time we hope to have a decision to move forward one way or the other. And I think, as you heard at the hearing, people want to see some of the details in what that ordinance might look like. So I think that will be our first opportunity to coalesce
well, we ought to have those kind of informational meetings before August 31st.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're going to be starting to do those. And I think we have to do those, we can make them open to the members of the public. There may be some special workshop meetings that we do. Either that or we carve out time in our regular meetings, every month to start to talk a little bit more about it.
Maybe we could have a workshop.
Yeah.
You get some drafts formulated.
Got it. Yeah, all right. So I'll look to start setting some of that up. Do some workshops where we present some straw man ideas around it. We have some examples, I think, that were shared with you from Glenn Chalder, who is the gentleman who is facilitating with Jamie the zoning code update, and largely they were examples that they have written for other municipalities. So I think we need to, at that workshop, we need to be prepared, to say, if yes, these are the parameters, and whatever additional information we get from Glenn would be helpful.
I don't want to get sidetracked and make too many comments, but there was one red flag for me personally in that public hearing. That was the individual that suggested that we as a community work towards becoming a leader in the retail cannabis sales industry. And I really struggled with that concept.
As did I. It's, craft breweries, one thing. And, would we have the same, the question is, would we have the same reaction if there were to be we became known for craft brewery in town as well? Probably would think that's not what we want to really be known for.
Yeah, to Susan's point, it's the law, and I understand it's something that we have to deal with, but working towards becoming a leader in that particular thing, I struggle.
When you just said the Glenn Chalder, and he's working on this in other towns, et cetera, in our town.
Yeah.
And you said we could say this is what it would be. Do we say that, or does the planning and zoning say that?
In an ordinance, we define it.
Yeah.
Okay,
We decided that we're gonna make the decision rather
okay,
than hand it off.
And there will be some discretion given to planning and zoning
Okay.
based on interpretation of the zoning code. If we're saying, and it's by special permit, right? So the special permit
We set
process.
distances, we set the distances
Okay.
from schools, things like that, right?
So to me, it seems logical that the first thing to decide is, do we want this? Is it a yes or no on the whole thing? The how is, to me, is phase two. I was hoping to get a stronger feeling from that hearing on
yeah,
what people want. And they seem to be coming back and saying, we don't know enough about it really to know what we want. So,
Go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, that's all right. I was just going to say, between now and August 31st, what do we do to get people to the point where they feel they have an educated opinion, and how do we find out what that is?
So I think, I quite honestly, I think we have to put something out there that says this is a possibility. This is an ordinance that we would contemplate if we say yes. If we make the decision that it's going to be okay to do these things, this is the way it's gonna shape up. But I think you're still trying to get to, people are at, you say, think people are at a point where they're not ready to make a decision because they don't have enough information about cannabis. I'm gonna take a little issue with that. I'm pretty sure everybody who walked in that room had an idea about whether they supported the distribution or you know, the yes or no question. I'm almost guaranteed I could, you know, that everybody walked into that room, maybe saving us.
To Susan's point, though, that one question about why Madison decided against it, I'd love to know if they had some specifics or if it was simply the 5 or 6 members of their board deciding it. But to Susan's point, the other question I'd like to get answered from P&Z is I remember back when I was on P&Z and we dealt with, well, I'm going to say adult entertainment because that's the one that rises to my mind. Is my understanding that to say no leaves ourselves open. It's better to say yes, but, or yes, and put regulations on it. But if you say no, you can't put any qualifications on anything. So that's, you know, I struggle with it. Don't get me wrong. But that's my understanding from a P&Z perspective, that if we say it's okay with these controls, but if you say no, you don't get to put any controls on it, and then you kind of leave yourself open to legal interpretation, let's put it that way. But I remember with flags.
Yeah,
Remember the Irish pub with flags?
yeah, I was a party to that.
Yeah, and that's one of those strange things. I mean, the law says you can't regulate flags.
I think this is a little bit different because there are separate state statutes related to the rights of municipalities to determine the sale. That's in the legislation that.
My understanding is you get, yeah, okay. That would be a good answer that I would love to have. That was my understanding, that if you say yes, you get to put controls on it. If you say no, then you open yourself up to challenges, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll recirculate the presentation from Bloom Shapiro, where they had some pretty good explanations of exactly what we are allowed to do if we say yes by state statute. What are the decision parameters we are allowed to make? Now, if you remember that.
Right, but did they answer the questions? If you say no, what do you open yourself up to?
Not specifically, other than the fact that you are allowed to say no per the legislation.
Yeah, I thought.
That's the backstop. Unless that gets challenged and someone takes it to the state Supreme Court and to throw out the legislation.
Because I thought you said we were in greater jeopardy, well, I don't know, jeopardy's the right word, but if we didn't make any decision, yes or no,
Then
I thought that we were more open to having people apply to
Yes.
do business here.
Absolutely.
I thought if we said no, that no means no.
Yeah, my only, yeah, and I agree with what you're saying, Sandy, except my understanding, when you say no, you open yourself to legal challenges.
Okay.
Right. But it is what it is. I would rather assume the responsibility, make a decision, you know, whatever it is we decide with whatever information we have, and just assume the responsibility and make the decision, and show the public, and then the public may respond some more. I was very disappointed, needless to say, at all the information we've gotten so far. And personally, I mean, I've asked different organizations and people individually, and I'm just not getting the feedback. Most say, you know,
It's what it is. Right?
Yeah.
it's the world we live in.
Well, the other specific thing that was discussed was a referendum. And 3 people raised the point and asked why we couldn't do that. And I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah, I struggled with it. I kept my mouth shut that night. You know, I did talk about the cost of, you know, $10,000 on a separate, separate referendum question. Pete is taking a look at whether or not we can do an advisory question in November on the ballot. you know, I think doing a standalone makes absolutely no sense at all for the reason is that
We
we
would have
hope.
to do all the work before that
Well,
anyway, and have something to say yes or no to.
Right, but more than that, the simple reason that we'll be excited if 20% of the people show up tomorrow at the budget referendum.
Yeah.
So are we gonna get a statistically more valid sample by putting it on a referendum when, 15 or 20%,
Shows up
17% show up anyway? And again, not to beat the drum, but, and we can all talk about the efficacy of the Zen City report, but the number of responses in that, over 1,000, is statistically valid. Based on, they predict elections on a lower percentage number of participants in polls based on than what we did. So anyway, I'm not trying to argue the point. It's just,
Yeah, I don't know whether it was a timing thing or what, but I was just surprised that even, sure, we had the one lobbyist, but I mean, the advocates on the other side, I mean, nobody shows up.
yeah, and I was surprised Dave didn't show up.
Well, that's what I was thinking of, but then, if anybody can afford that,
Well, that's a good point too, our own boards and commissions, youth and family services, what do they think?
Right.
The police, what do they think the issues are?
Police have big issues.
Yeah.
Well, the police have bigger issues right now because there's no teeth in the enforcement. Yeah, there's not teeth, but there's no methodology. Although about a month ago, at the Guilford Yacht Club, the police department was one of the hosts of a forum that had law enforcement folks from all over the state doing sort of lab exercises. People would be drinking, people would be smoking, and then some would be doing both, and to try to understand the impact and awareness when you confront them. It was an interesting process. Maybe we'll have Butch talk about the next meeting with that.
To your point, my understanding, the police department is saying they can't really do anything with the cannabis thing because there are no guidelines to say at this level you're impaired. They're not there yet. There's no way to test, and even if they test, they don't have any measurements, and this is the line.
Okay,
More work to do.
yeah. All right, so do we have a motion? Did we actually get to a motion of extending it?
I don't know.
But let's put it back.
So moved.
And second.
Second.
All right, let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. More to come on that topic. All right. Discuss and take possible action to set a public hearing date to discuss Eversource's capital project plan pending receipt of documents from Eversource. I want to thank you folks for coming in and trying to keep this at top of mind for us. As I think we have been frustrated, as you have been, by Eversource and their lack of transparency on this particular project. Kevin McGee, who was on the line, is still on the line, has been trying to get to the bottom of that for a while. I have reached out to my community liaison representative, and there's been a little bit of a problem because they changed liaisons. Longstanding individual Kathy Liaison, how ironic, Liaison is the liaison. Has moved on to other places, and there's a new gentleman that's representing Eversource to the municipality. So I had an extended conversation with him last week, saying that this has been far too long. We're looking for the materials, we're looking for documentation. I was to have received something by last Thursday. I did not receive anything by last Thursday. But they are, as Aaron mentioned, as a result of this coming to our attention at the end of February, I reached out and said, stop doing the work. So that's the good news, is that they're not moving forward at this time. The questions you all raised are, I think, essential questions. David and I talked a little while ago. I was in a regulated monopoly, and there's something that the Public Utility Regulatory Authority grants when you are allowed to provide services as a regulated entity called a CPCN, Certificate of Public Convenience and Need, and that generally extends an awful lot of leeway to the respective monopolies, right? How am I doing so far with this? You spent a career in that world, right? And as David mentioned, they're one step below the threshold that requires siting council review. And that's an extensive process. It can be an extensive process.
But don't we want to remain below that? Because if it gets into siting council, then we lose all control.
We don't, I'm not sure. The question is, do we have any control over it?
Oh.
Yeah.
Anyway,
The certificate of public inconvenience and need gives them the authority to do things to provide the public protection and.
I always think of siting control as cell towers and,
Yeah.
that's.
Their expanse is well beyond just cell towers. The point here is we need information from Eversource. We also need to understand, and this is where Eversource's attorneys or whoever might be the ones who we talk to, what discretion do they have? At the end of the day, even if we have scenic road designation and some requirements for a public hearing, does that mean they can ignore everything that we're saying or asking, right, and move forward anyway based on public safety and the public convenience stuff? So those are the kind of questions we need to have with them. And the answer is, whether it's a public hearing or a public forum, we're going to get them in front of the community at some point. At this point, which is why we had this pending receipt of documents from Eversource, or getting at something to actually talk about. I don't want to set a public hearing date at this point, or a public forum date at this point. I think it's premature, unless anybody has other ideas or comments.
No, but I keep the pressure on. I mean, to your point, what power do we truly have at the end of the day?
Right. But there's no question that they need,
Noisy
they need
wheels.
they need to hear from us and the concerns of residents of Guilford around this issue. Kevin, anything that you've been able to glean since we talked last on this last week?
No, nothing new since we talked on this. I mean, the tree advisory board has met a couple times and have discussed this topic, and we're in favor of a full town meeting, or not town meeting, but a public forum type meeting to get more details regarding the project in terms of the engineering. They understand the tree removal effects of it, but they want to know more, the same as the members of the neighborhood do, in terms of the need for and necessity for the increased height of the poles and upgrade of the wiring and stuff. So they're also looking for additional information.
Got it.
Kevin, do you have access to any situation in any other town in Connecticut with Eversource trying to do a similar project and the outcome?
Haven't heard anything really regarding projects similar to this. There are some pilot programs like we would participate in, which you hear about the West Street project there, where there's been some pullback on those type of reliability projects that we were part of on West Street there, which is drawing concerns to the residents for Great Hill Road. Even though they're two different projects that may have similar effects in terms of tree removal, because they're both looking at removal of trees that could potentially impact the wires, and trees being located within 10 feet of the outermost component of the utility poles and wires there, which pushes some of these back almost onto private property also for removals.
Apparently there was a public hearing last winter in Madison. Did you come across that at all? I literally just Googled it and this came up last November. As Eversource proposes to remove hundreds of trees, public hearing set. So I don't know if
Unaware.
you're aware.
Set by Eversource?
I don't know. The town announced a public hearing. It looks like Eversource did participate in it, but
I'll reach out to
So
Peggy
much.
on that one.
yeah. Great, thank you.
But as Matt indicated, we currently have them on hold for this capital project there. They are running their standard maintenance trimming and standard maintenance program work in parallel to this, and that's the residents indicated some confusion going on there. But they also have their regular trimming program, which is trimming a good portion of the roads on the west side of Guilford, west of the Long Hill Road from pretty much Route 1, a little bit of Peddlers Road, or actually Peddlers Road, northern section of Moose Hill Road, all the way up through to into North Guilford there on the western side of town. So that's their pruning program for the Guilford, which they have two different or several different pruning programs or styles there, which is standard maintenance trimming, anything within 8 feet side of the wires, 15 feet above. Then they have a program called METT, which is a heavier trimming program, which also removes branches below the wires and brush and stuff below the system there. Then there's another one, METTB, which are actually blue sky, which in my approvals, which I sent out to them for tree trimming, I told them that we require, where possible, a crown left over the road. If the tree's high enough to leave a crown over the road to maintain the scenic and cooling effects of the trees for the users of the road, of the recreational activities of walking, biking, which these trees provide in terms of also making sure the pavement actually does stay cool during the summer times.
Great. Kevin has just described the series of projects, which I can't keep straight, except we did have, Eversource did come out and meet with Kevin and myself on a couple of those projects. So it seems interesting that they're doing full disclosure and review of a couple of those projects, but the one that perhaps has the biggest potential impact is one that trying to slide a fastball by us, but nonetheless, we'll get to it. Kevin, thanks for your contributions here this morning. Any other comments or questions?
Is the public allowed to say anything?
It's typically not in public in our meeting. At the end of the meeting. At the end of the meeting, public, you can make comments.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So we're just going to table that pending further work with Eversource to get them to the table.
Yeah, it's on hold and we're
Yeah.
comfortable that it's really on hold,
Right.
then
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like there's any harm to.
Well, and that's what I'm going to mention to Mr. Magnola today. It says, the sooner you satisfy the needs of the community, the sooner you may be able to get back to some version of the program. If that's the case, or if you have no ability to stop it, then you can get back to doing what you're doing. So the longer they take to get us the information, the longer it's going to take for them to have determination as to whether they can fully move forward with this. Although I have a suspicion that they have some significant regulatory authority over it, but that doesn't mean we can't voice our displeasure and our concern and ask for alternatives.
Well, I think at that point in time, they're gonna have to tell us why it's necessary. I mean, it's one thing for them to say it's necessary, you have to tell us why.
Yeah, and they're going to come back with the first answer they're going to come back with is the most substantial outages and the most frequent outages occur in that part of town. West Street is the way it is because of a significant amount of pressure put on by residents of this community to fortify the reliability of the network. And again, there's a gentleman who lives on Winterberry Street who was calling our office about once a week. Every time there was a storm, the wind blew or something, they were losing power in that area. And they, Eversource finally has addressed some of those problems, but it has to do, I think, more with, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin, more with the distribution of power into those areas. So there was the ability to backfeed it. This is way over my skis on this one. But a redesign and additional equipment, breakers or circuit breakers or whatever it was that would allow for them to be more sustainable. But nonetheless, our office has gotten a significant amount, and Kevin as well, significant amount of input relative to the reliability in that part of town. Okay. Item 13. Oh no, that's the one we just finished, sorry. Discuss and take possible action to approve outdoor dining permits and plans for submission to the state of Connecticut and encroachment permits for those requiring same. Jamie, thanks for your patience this morning.
No, it's a pleasure to be here. I learned a lot. Thank you. Good morning,
More
hi,
than you wanted
everybody.
to.
Yeah, with last week, I feel happy to sit and just listen. So, the zoning regulations are out for public comment,
Yes.
available in a variety of places.
Great,
Please,
great job to get
review
it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. So I'm here before you today to, we're approaching outdoor dining season. Typically, May 1st is kind of that due date. There have been a couple of legislative actions. I'm not sure if you got my memo, but I tried to summarize them here for you. Basically, you know that during COVID, the governor's executive order sort of opened up the opportunity to do outdoor display of merchandise as well as outdoor dining to kind of keep our local establishments, in business during that time. During that time, the previous zoning enforcement officer really did a ton of work to go around to our local restaurants and give them zoning permits, essentially something administratively done within our office where applicants had to disclose sort of, where they were seating people in their outside space and how many seats. That was reviewed by the different land use departments. Most specifically, the health department, as a septic town. Just to be clear, these aren't more seats that restaurants are doing. It's an equivalent amount of seats due to septic constraints. So it's just they're moving the seating outside. So that's kind of an important distinction. And then, of course, things would go before the fire marshal just to make sure there was proper egress. So with all of that work, there has been a recent piece of legislation, which I referenced in the memo, which now basically is requiring towns to permit outdoor dining and beverage service as an accessory use. So if you're a permitted restaurant, doing work in a zone or cited in a zone in which we allow them, now our zoning regulations are moving towards permitting outdoor dining as an accessory use. To be clear, if you have live music, that's still a special permit. So. The new draft zoning regulations do now have outdoor dining as an accessory use. And it is something that is done administratively within my office by the zoning enforcement officer. And again, goes before the fire marshal and the health department. If applicable, may go before the town engineer for flood concerns. But there's a little caveat here that I think we need to address as a town. It's when that cafe seating or the public outdoor dining takes space in a public right of way, more specifically a state highway right of way. So our town green happens to be the confluence of two state highways, lucky. So last year around this time, working with Sherry Cody, we did a huge amount of work going around talking to all the businesses that did either have outdoor display of merchandise or outdoor dining and got them state highway encroachment permits, which was tedious, but I think, the Department of Transportation who gives those was pleased that we had taken on that effort. It's something that the majority of that work was done a year ago, and I think we can just kind of roll it all over into reapplying because they only lasted for a year. Because I think state agencies are still kind of grappling with what to do with these new regulations and new ordinances to allow this activity. So I'm hoping that when I go back to DOT and ask them about this, they'll, kind of understand what we're looking to do, and it'll be a little bit more of an easier discussion. But essentially, I've also looked at other towns and the regulations that they've adopted. Westport has a great reg, and there is an additional step for activities in the public right of way or in the state highway right of way. So it's basically for your consideration now to think about maybe how you would want to do that. I'm happy to just, the way our regulations are written, on or about May 1st, we'll reach out to all the establishments that have outdoor dining. We'll kind of reconfirm that they're doing what they had disclosed they would be doing. Just make sure that egress is being met and make sure there's no seat creep, as the health department calls it, and let them continue to do what they're doing.
Will this be for both town road and state road?
The green, I think we've I think it should be any public space where you're, putting your cafe seating,
So,
or outdoor
yes, it would.
dining. There's
Then-
just an extra layer on the state road of.
Right, so no, if we okay it for the state, it'll be okay for the town.
I think so.
And a couple of times you mentioned display of merchandise aligned with this. I mean,
Yeah, well, in our zoning regulations, display of merchandise is handled the same way. This legislation is specific to outdoor food and beverage.
so we would not be talking about.
I
You
mean,
know where I'm going with
I
this,
know
yeah.
where you're going. I mean, I think that this, I think you have to take a step back and ask kind of a broader question, right? Like,
Well, I just want to clarify if it's
this
going to or not,
activity
so, okay.
in our town center, like, is it a beneficial thing?
A year ago, or whenever the state did this during the pandemic, was it simply was there a legislation passed, which just a proclamation for COVID, or?
Yeah,
What
so it
can we
was,
turn to say, this is where the state said this?
right, so that was Executive Order 7MM that sort of showed us that outdoor dining and I believe outdoor display of merchandise was now allowed. Because if you
But
remember,
basically,
people
it
were
was
going into stores.
This order was to encourage during the
Yeah.
pandemic, and it lasted approximately a
Yeah.
year. And now we're in.
With food and beverage, they've moved to make it law now, so.
Well, when restaurants were closed, the first step back was when Lamont in May of 2020, because I remember this, allowed outdoor dining, and that was all that was allowed. So,
Yeah.
restaurants really scrambled.
So I think it's, again, it's one of those things that give them an inch, whatever, but I think it's been a positive thing,
It's
especially with
beneficial
the
to
weather.
the town vitality.
Yeah, and not only, in that intersection, the other restaurants have grabbed hold of the thing too, patios, all that stuff.
State right of way then extends to sidewalks, is that the deal?
Yeah, and I think you all also have some jurisdiction
We
over
do.
sidewalks.
The state
and
cedes,
liability and-
the state cedes the responsibility for maintenance of the sidewalks to us, even though it's in their right of way. But it's to the better benefit of our community, our merchants, et cetera, that those sidewalks are maintained, because the state not gonna do it.
Yeah, I think we have to explain it to the business owners. It's their interest too. I mean, there's a couple that are struggles because they just don't have the real estate, but I hope there's a way we can find a way to make it work, because I do think it's a positive for.
So Jamie, refresh my memory, please. Are we making the applications on behalf of the merchants to the Department of Transportation?
I
Is that
did
the way
last year.
the process
I did.
worked, right?
I assembled all the paperwork, all the images, all the mapping, because I think it's one of those things where for us as a town to say like, well, the business has to get the permit, I don't see that happening, honestly.
This is saying your business taxes at work, it's kind of showing the businesses that we are trying
Yeah.
to support them and help them. Seems
It
to
was
make sense.
incredibly well received. They were very appreciative. They felt like I was sort of going there and offering them something that could bring them into quote unquote compliance. And I did sort of try to lobby state DOT last year to say, hey, please don't make us do this every year.
Give us a 3-year window.
Can we just submit something and then you'll be happy? But they may have changed their minds. I mean, again, I haven't gone back to them in a year about this.
Well, I can't imagine we're the only.
We're
state
not.
that's having the same challenge, and I'm sure, I'm assuming DOT has figured it out, that this is for the benefit of all of our communities, but. And the good news too is we have a relationship with the local DOT
Yes,
coordinator, Todd
it's quite
Igara,
nice. Yes.
who we've worked with extensively on the wayfinding signs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's great.
But he's very responsive.
Yep.
Terrific.
Yep.
Anything further?
So what do you require from us?
Yeah, so I mean, I think just as a step in the process for you to be aware of the food and beverage establishments in town that are that do have their outdoor dining or cafe seating within the public right of way. So that's really what this map is. For you to know that my office has a zoning permit on file for all of these establishments, and we'll review it on an annual basis on or around May 1st to ensure everything is compliant. Any new outdoor dining will go through a similar process. And again, if it is within the public right of way, I'd like to bring it before you to disclose that, so you know, because of these other seating responsibility to, the Board of Select people. It's really sort of.
The only point I'm going to emphasize a little, because I remember it again from P&Z days, is that the outdoor display is, people are concerned about that.
When it gets overdone.
Yeah, I mean, maybe by having a permitting process, it makes the merchants more aware that, we know what's going on, and it gives us some, again, if we permit it, we can control it or regulate it, or whatever words you want to use there. So that would be my only thing. I think outdoor displays has some value done correctly.
Yeah, and
it's like signage. I mean,
right.
Signage is okay. Overdone signage is not so much.
Right. As we saw earlier. But yeah, so just to emphasize, these are temporary activities. Anytime it's a structure or anything like that, it's, it's a site plan, it's before P&Z, it's a building permit, it's before HDC, it's all that stuff. So these are just temporary use.
So in terms of action, this permitting process is under the authorization of state statute and local planning. So I'm not sure that we can actually approve the permits, but I think we can approve the process by which we are utilizing, that we're utilizing to allow this to continue. Right? Does that make sense?
That sounds good to me. I mean, the most reference that I could find is just for use of town-owned property, including sidewalks, parking spaces, roads, or road right-of-way, or for mobile food trucks, contact the select person's office for their approval. And that's what I see sort of in other towns, is how they're doing it. So I think it's just a coordination, communication, transparency that this is happening, and that you all have been.
We need a motion to support or, to approve.
I'll move the process. I think it's a good idea.
Support.
If you've got the manpower to actually do the permits for everybody, I mean, maybe it's an.
We're not a really big town, so I'll say yes.
Well, excuse for Sherry to talk to all these businesses stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's good. It's good to build that relationship.
I'd encourage it and support it and move it within reason. I mean, if it starts becoming overwhelming for you.
Not to muddy the water on it, but for non-town owned properties, et cetera, the outdoor dining permitting stuff, say Casey's Pub, for instance, where they basically built out their parking lot. Does this same process exist for them as well?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So anytime that there's a structure being built, then we would, have them do a site plan and work with that, like South Lane Bistro is building a pergola, kind of one of the cut throughs right there. So they did a site plan about a year ago. But yeah, if it's temporary, just putting out tables, then go.
Okay, let me try your minds. All in favor? Aye. That motion carries. Thank you very much, Jean.
Thank you.
On to item 15, discuss and take possible action on noise variance applications. The first one is from John Cottrell, 6 Little Meadow. The date 5/27/23. Traditional family barbecue as well as family gaming events. And their annual blended family Olympics. It's been approved by Chief Hyatt. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Item 15.2, submitted by Sarah Salato with Guilford Pride. This is, I don't know whether anybody's seen anything about this on social media. This is an organization that is bringing attention to and support for the LGBTQ community here in town, and particularly youth. This is going to be a parade as well as a small parade. It's going to start in the town hall parking lot, come out, go around the green, and then convene on the green where they're going to have a series of activities, speakers, etc. And this has also been approved by Chief Fire of the Police Department. But more importantly, they have been coordinating this event, the parade, which would necessitate some kind of traffic control around the streets. So it may just wind up being a march around the outside of the perimeter of the green.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second, let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries unanimously. Item 16, appointments and resignations. 16.1 is discuss and take possible action on the resignation of Morgan Airy from the Board of Fire Commissioners effective immediately. I think we have a letter from Morgan that she is actually leaving town, moving. And it's unfortunate because Morgan is probably one of the youngest board members,
Yeah, I feel
Board
like
of
she
Commissioners
just-
member. And we
I
did
feel like we
not-
just appointed her.
We did.
So,
Yeah.
but it looks like it's a good opportunity for
Yeah.
her. So is there a motion to accept it with regret, appreciation?
Daughter. So moved.
Second,
Second.
and let me try your minds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries unanimously. 16.2, discuss and take possible action on the appointment of Amy Sullivan to the Board of Fire Commissioners. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A second. Any comments or questions? Other than it's nice to see Amy back in the public arena after, what, 8 years on the Board of Education? So welcome back, Amy. Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries unanimously. Request for use of the green. 17.1, act on request from the Elm Haven Health to use of green as a rest stop for its Closer to Free ride taking place September 9th, 2023. Is there a motion? This is their big
Yeah,
cycle
right.
bike fundraiser.
Right.
So
I'll second it.
second it. All right, let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. 17.2, act on request of the Guilford Agricultural Society to place a sign on the green for their farmers market April 24th through sometime in October. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second that one. Charles seconded it. For those who aren't aware, maybe this is another opportunity for people. The farmers market is going to be taking place every Thursday at the fairgrounds. Basically, the town of Durham had something similar on their green on Thursdays, and the event coordinator, when Durham, the current administration in Durham, ceased the operation of that or stopped the operation of it. They were looking for a location, and based on Barbara Hammerlin's, who's on Barbara and her husband John and other members of the Agricultural Society, were familiar with that program, and they were approached by this coordinator to see if we'd be willing to move forward with it. So should be a great addition.
Great.
I like the way the application is made out of green.
How appropriate, right? Okay, let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries unanimously. Committee reports.
Let's turn into a nice event,
It could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't even
For
I know what
both
the
the
hours are.
citizens and.
And it's conveniently on my way home. I can go that way to get home. Stuff, pick up some
Don't
fresh
forget
stuff.
it, buy, you gotta cook it.
You're right. And I think in conversations I had with Barbara, they will also have a couple of food trucks there as well. So, or one or two, I'm not sure how many, but, I don't know if there's gonna be entertainment at some point or not, but certainly, an event like that on a weekly basis, is a great addition to it. All right, committee reports.
Many affordable housing meetings, more to happen. And also just on the informal committee regarding discussions about the Park and Rec program fund, we're making progress, but we're not ready to have a report yet, but we will.
Excellent. I want to thank Sandy. Sandy's been very busy with some of her other volunteers on the housing committee, the affordable housing group, although it's morphing into affordable housing committee from the Housing for Economic Development. Is that what it was?
Housing for housing for economic development plan.
There you go.
Maybe we can put that to bed even this year and make it some other name.
And there was an awful lot of discussion, and there was some discussion on both sides.
Right.
And I think what the compromise that wound up coming out of this was, back up for a second. A lot of this, the focus of the conversation was around inclusionary zoning, which is requiring a component of affordable housing in development. So then the questions came around, where is that most appropriate? How many units does it start at? Do we do, I think there's general agreement that you can give developers an opt-out with a fee in lieu of, sort of what they used to do for open space. But the parameters of where that was the basis of the discussion. It's the devil's in the details.
Those all sound like reasonable, logical questions, but took a while to get to making them reasonable and logical, but, and there's a lot of work done by town staff, and particularly, one member of our Housing for Economic Development Plan Committee threw herself into this, Christy Rubin, and a lot of input from MJ Kastner and others. Anyway, there's a lot behind this, but I think we got to a good place.
Right. And last Wednesday, the Planning and Zoning Committee said, okay, that's only one piece of the zoning rewrite, okay? There's significant body of work behind that outside of that, which has now been posted for public comment period. It's a 35-day public comment period. And the discussion at the board, I was as an ex officio, I was actually participating in the P&Z meeting last Wednesday night. And, several of us made the point, let's put something out there. Let's get a starting point. And the public comment period is the period that we're going to be able to start to formulate what the community.
Because we're also on the verge of some significant developments in Guilford, and we have an opportunity maybe to make an impact on affordable housing with these developments if we can get the rules in place fast enough. So that was part of it.
Yeah. And again, everybody at the planning and zoning meeting acknowledged this is a starting point for discussion purposes, to move something forward. Ergo, something what we would do with cannabis at some point is just put a stake in the ground and say, okay, let's go. And again, there were several comments that went over the last couple of days about some folks who had been opposed to doing inclusionary, putting something out. We were pleasantly surprised at the way it came out. So I think it's a good opportunity for everybody. So, okay. Anything else that's on committee reports? I don't think so, right? Correspondence, public works report or building report, pretty perfunctory, right? Old business. I just wanted, my personal privilege, I had a follow-up conversation with Brad Cronstadt, who is, I think he's the CEO, or the CFO of the Shoreline Greenway Trail, and it was in response to the letters to the editor a few weeks ago, which seemed a little aggressive, seemed pretty impassioned, right? And what he was concerned about was that I may have mistakenly suggested that when I talked about the fact that when I was first brokering the meetings with the various folks, that I had suggested that the Shoreline Greenway Trail had actually acknowledged some of the accusations that I reflected, that I mentioned, had been, that they had been accused of in those previous iterations of the Greenway Trail. So the distinction is, no, I was merely putting the information out and to the folks I met with, anyway, that these are the perceptions. All right. They acknowledge that there were difficulties and there were misunderstandings, but they do not acknowledge some of the other things. Intentionally misleading strategies, et cetera. So I just want to clarify that for the record. So. All right. Anybody else with old business? New business. Public forum. Come on up.
Hi, again. Okay, so do I understand that this has been, the Eversource construction project has been tabled to your May 1st meeting? Do I get the date right?
Yeah, that would be the intention, is to have it at our next meeting.
Okay, and if at that meeting, a
We'll
public
set a public hearing,
hearing is scheduled. That would be, the soonest it could be would be June 2nd, is
probably around that time,
around that.
unless we
Okay,
do a special meeting.
okay.
If,
And
if Eversource gets materials to us, within a couple of days, we might have a special meeting to set the public hearing date sooner to get this thing moving.
When can you do that electronically as far as?
Yeah.
What's on
Yes.
the item on the agenda?
Yes.
all right, so we should just keep watching your website for that. Okay, now clarification about the Winterberry resident who is disgruntled. That was resolved. He got some equipment, or they did put equipment up there near his house and everything's fine with that, or is it still?
We didn't have any snowstorms of note this year, so I don't know entirely. I do know that the workaround that was described. Kevin, you're on the line, right?
Yep.
The workaround that ostensibly satisfied the residents on Winterberry?
I don't think there's been any work up there besides the town last year and Eversource looking at additional trees up in that section, northern section of Great Hill Roads, which have been dropping limbs and branches on the wires there. I'm not familiar with any physical work on Eversource's part, but
I was just trying to get at, was that Winterberry resident, is that part of this Eversource capital project, or is that a completely different animal?
Your guess is as good as mine.
my understanding is this project ends that they're currently doing just above the mill. He's further up, so I'm not sure if that's an additional phase, and that's part of the reason why we're looking to meet with Eversource to find out that long-term project.
Right. Because it sounds like he might not be satisfied, this person up on Winterberry.
He seemed to have been satisfied with the explanation of the work that Eversource was going to do related to the reliability and feeding their area, so.
Okay, and then I guess my last question is, I know you said you were in conversation with your liaison with Eversource, but have you written correspondence to Eversource
Yes.
representing the town of Guilford?
By email,
Okay, so
not
it's,
letters.
you have asked for cooperation,
Yes.
some daylighting on this officially. All right, thank you.
Anyone else in public forum?
I was just gonna say that we've had Lucas tree people going by our house every day for months, including this morning, going up Beaverhead Road. There are still trees marked on West Street that have not been taken down yet. They were working over there as of last week, taking down more mature trees. They did do the tree trimming from my house, because we're on the corner of Beaverhead and Great Hill. They did do the trimming up Beaverhead Road this past week. So they are still in the neighborhood, still cutting down trees, but not on Great Hill Road, as far as I know.
All right, thank you. Anyone else, public forum? No? Anyone on Zoom, public forum? I see a few folks there. Yes.
One quick comment, and it's sort of off the Eversource topic. I was very interested to hear about the farmers market starting to be held down on the fairgrounds. But you should all know, and if you haven't attended yet, please come up to North Guilford at the Dudley Farm Museum up there. See the museum, see the grounds. It's every Saturday, 9:30.
Don't forget North Guilford.
It's a good time to see West Street and Great Hill Road at the same time.
David, thank you for bringing that up. When I first got wind of this, I was not aware that it was going to be on Thursdays, and my first concern was, what are you doing? You're gonna compete with and by the way, some of the members, Barbara herself, I think has been a vendor.
Oh, yes.
Up at the North Guilford one, so there is no conflict, and I think the more we promote the agriculture.
Can't have too many of these.
Right, it's all good.
Exactly. So thank you for your comments. Okay. Next up, discuss and take possible action on a more memorandum of understanding with the Guilford Employees Association. Executive session may be required. Executive session will be required. So I'm going to ask folks, thank you very much for your participation. And
Here's my written,
thank you for your time.
what I read today.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to need one.
Yes.
Matthew, land acquisition has a very brief presentation. Would it be possible to move to the
Yeah,
top of the line?
once we get into executive session, we can move it.
Okay.
So is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss the three items, 23, 24, and 25? So moved, and a second, all in favor? Aye. That motion carries. All right. All right, is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
A second? Second. Let me try your minds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries unanimously. During the executive session, there were no motions made and no actions were taken. However, there was significant discussion on a number of items. And the first of which is there a motion to approve the appraisal of a targeted property by the Land Acquisition Committee? Second. Any further comments or questions? Let me try your minds. All in favor? Aye. That motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion to approve an amendment, an extension to agreement between the town of Guilford and the Guilford Employees Association, and authorize the first selectman to sign that document?
I would like to make that.
Second. Any comments or questions?
Yay.
Let me try.
Yay, except not after tomorrow. I mean, after tomorrow at 8 o'clock, hopefully, yay.
Yes. Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. She already said yay several times.
Aye, I'm sorry.
That's right. That motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion to authorize the first selectman to sign an MOU on a change in dental plans with our respective unions?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. We also reviewed 4 applications for appeals related to our various tax exemptions. There were 2 of which, there was one that we granted in its entirety, the request, and we will notify the assessor of that. And there was one that there were 2 others that we decided we needed more information for. And then the last one, which is a combination of both the elderly tax freeze program and veterans exemption. Is there a motion to include the one that we voted one that we discussed in its entirety, and one where we're only applying the one of the 2 requested? Motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, further comments or questions? All right, hearing none. Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion
Aye.
carries unanimously. Thank you. One of our longer meetings, in quite some time.
my.
So, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Sorry.